podcast is and why you might want to use one in your classroom, I'm going to show you how to create a podcast. The best software for creating a podcast would be GarageBand. It's created by iTunes. The main drawback to it is that you can only use it on the iPhone, iPad, iPod, or a Mac. So I'm going to use Audacity. And click download. Audacity works on pretty much all devices. It's very universal, so it should be the best for your podcast. From here you will just download a free version of Audacity, which I've already done. And now I'll show you how to make your recording. As I mentioned in the slides at the beginning of my presentation, one reason you might want to create a podcast as a teacher is for students who are absent to be able to access the instruction from a particular day. It's as easy as at the beginning of your instruction clicking record and at the end pressing stop. But I'm going to show you a short little demo of how you would do it. So if I'm about to start my classroom instruction, I'm going to click record. Good morning, class. Today we'll be discussing slavery prior to the Civil War. Okay, I coughed in that, which I'm sure did not sound too pretty. So we're going to play back and just see how distracting it is. Good morning, class. Today we'll be discussing slavery prior to the Civil War. Okay, that did not sound very good at all. So we're going to just click and drag the portion we're wanting to erase, all of that cough right there. All we have to do to erase it is click the scissors and it cuts it out. Easy as that. You click back at the beginning, press play to see what it sounds like without the cough. Good morning, class. Today we'll be discussing slavery prior to the Civil War. Okay, that sounds much better. Another feature Audacity offers is you can select a portion of your recording that doesn't have your voice in it, click Effects, and then Noise Removal, and get a noise profile. That's going to profile all the noise in your recording that's not your voice. So that could be, students in the back shuffling their papers, whispering, whatever. This will just take out all that extra noise. We're going to go back to noise removal again and remove noise. Alright, we're going to click at the beginning and play it without all the excess noise. Good morning, class. Today we'll be discussing slavery prior to the Civil War. Okay, that sounds much better, a lot crisper. It brings your voice to the front, so students won't be distracted by all that excess noise. Another feature that I'm sure your students would especially find interesting is you can select that, go to Effects. We're going to change the pitch of my voice. We'll go from an F to a C. Okay? Click and play from the beginning. Okay, that's borderline chipmunk / horror movie, not really sure. But if I'm not wanting to freak out my students that weren't in class and go and listen online, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to undo the change of my pitch. So we're back to the regular sound. The effects that Audacity offers is very numerous. As you can see, there's an entire list. It would take all night if I were to show you how to use all of them. But the ones I showed you were the most helpful, the noise removal and just being able to cut out the portions that you don't want in there. If a student asks a question that's not relevant and you don't want that to be part of your podcast, you can just go back and cut that portion out, which is very nice. Once you're happy with your final product, you can go to File and then you're going to export as an MP3. And once you've done that, you can paste it to the website that you're wanting to podcast from. An example of a project that you could use with this is to have your students write a 500-word essay over your unit of study. So on mine it would be slavery. And they're going to go back and read their essay. So their 500-word essay they'll read on Audacity or GarageBand, edit it like I just did, and then post it to a website that the entire class has access to. This way they can hear each other's essays and they don't have to be afraid to stand in front of the class to read them. So I'm sure your students would love this kind of project. Now that you know how to use Audacity and you know some of those features, I'm going to show you how to access the podcast of others online. Alright, there are numerous websites out there that offer access to podcasts. However, I found that the iTunes Store gives the best selection of high quality podcasts for you to choose from. So if you have iTunes on your computer, you just have to go to the iTunes Store. We're going to go to Podcasts, and then click Education. If you notice over here on the top charts, this is audio and video, and it's episodic, so you can subscribe to it. And each of the videos are only about 10 minutes long, so you can just show it at the beginning of your class period. I want you to think about how often your students probably watch the news, because if they're anything like I was whenever I was a student, they probably never watch the news. So this gives you a great chance to just let your students know what's going on out there in the world, and you can use discussion groups or discuss as a class, journal entries, whatever you want to do, but I encourage you to at least check out CNN Student News because it's a great source, especially if you're a social studies teacher. Earlier I talked about doing a unit on slavery, so let's imagine that I'm a few units later in the semester and we're talking about the civil rights movement, and I'm going to search for Martin Luther King Jr. Alright. iTunes has several of his speeches, or several versions of his speeches on here. So most of them will cost 99 cents. We're just going to view one of the free podcasts.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator.
Okay, so as you can tell, it sounds like you are just in the crowd listening to Martin Luther King Jr. speak, which will just be amazing for your students to be able to hear, instead of you just reading out of the textbook or trying to explain what it was like during that time. To play this in your class, and the podcasts range from 3 minutes to 30 minutes, so you can just choose whichever one fits your instruction best. But just, you can bring the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. into your classroom. Please don't pass up that. So I showed you how easy it is to create a podcast, and then how easy it is to access these podcasts, and just how great they could be to use in your class. So now that you know how easy it is, I encourage you to give it a shot. Either try and make one or access one to play in your class, because it's a great source to use. So go out there, have fun, and thank you for listening.